It is a privilege and indeed a joy for me to add a few grace note words acknowledging and recognizing Sherman Tate as this year's awardee of the Arkansas Business Legacy of Leadership Award. Sherman and I have traveled a lot of miles together over the years, and they've been good ones. I'd known him before he joined Arkla Gas, but it was just great to work with him, and he provided such strong leadership over the years, and I'll always be grateful for that. He lifted people up. He went on to Alltel and Verizon, and now is chairman of Southern Bank Corp. But Sherman's always given back to the community, whether it's being chairman of the Urban League. He has been indefatigable in his work in support of Philander Smith, his alma mater. Sherman basically in his DNA has a spirit of encouragement with others. He knows how to mentor people and just bring out their best. And the real truth is Sherman has made our state a better place and our nation as well. So Sherman, congratulations on this well-deserved recognition. I wish I could be there with Mitch Bettis and Walter Smiley, my fellow Hempstead Countyman from Hope, Arkansas, as well as many other good friends. It's a special and meaningful night for a special person.
Mr. Smiley.
Thank you. Honored to be here to honor my friend and long-term colleague, Sherman Tate. They've given me 3 to 4 minutes, so there's not a whole lot you can say. I would refer you to the program that was in your chair. It has as good of a biography and a history of Sherman, so I won't try to repeat much of that. There was an interesting thing. Did you notice about him selling booze on Sunday when he was a bellhop in a hotel? And Sherman, did that really happen? Did you really sell booze on Sunday? He says that the statute of limitations has expired, so he will. Sherman grew up and graduated from high school in Marvell. For those of you that don't know Marvell, it's a town of about 1,000 people just west of Helena in Phillips County. He then attended Philander Smith College, and in the middle of that was drafted into the Army. He served 2 years in Vietnam, came back and finished his college degree, and in psychology, which was interesting. He then joined the National Guard and served for 28 years and finished with a commission of full bird colonel in the Army Reserve. From now on, we're going to call him Colonel Tate. He deserves it. Sherman's business experiences are only exceeded by the time that he spent working on public and philanthropic enterprises. I'll cover just a few of his business enterprises. In his professional life, he served as administrator of the Office of Personnel Management for the state of Arkansas, which is a really big job. He then held numerous top management positions at Arkla Gas and then later at Alltel. While his professional accomplishments are legion, I think his public service is even more impressive. I tried to get a list of all the boards and companies that he's worked with, and we couldn't get them all, frankly. I have a list of just a few. And in many of these, you must understand he was the first African American to serve in these positions. He was the first black to serve the Little Rock Chamber as its president. He's been on the board of Blue Cross Blue Shield for many years. He was on the board of the Center for Youth and Families, the board of Region Bank, and Southern Bank Corp. I hear from her, I can tell what he's doing because occasionally I get calls wanting to raise a little money for one of his projects. And the two, everybody's kind of nodding out there. I guess he's called all of you guys, hadn't he? The two that are most recent and I think most impactful are his work with the organization called 100 Black Men, which has done a great deal of good in the state of Arkansas. And then he resurrected pretty much single-handedly the Urban League in Arkansas. And I know that that organization has done enormous amount of good. Today, he's a partner with Janet Keller in a consulting organization called the Domino Effect, specializing in workplace diversity, management development. I wanted to put in a plug for Sherman on his new company. All the jobs and don't tell the story of Sherman. We can talk about everything he did well, but they don't adequately tell the story. I want to tell a couple of things that I work with Sherman on to give you a sense of the kind of person that he is. He and I were on the early board. We've got some Southern Bancorp people here tonight, I noticed. Sherman and I were on the first board of that probably 25 years ago, I guess, Sherman. And we screwed it up in the early days. We really did. We made a bunch of bad loans, and the regulators were mad at us. And we were trying to figure out what to do, and a bank from Chicago wanted to merge with us. And those of us on the board, we were tired, and we were tired of the regulators screaming at us and not having enough capital. So this bank decided they would like to acquire Southern. And they made us a really interesting offer. And I will never forget this board meeting that we had. And I was kind of tired, and I was leaning toward accepting their offer. And other board members spoke, and finally Sherman said, basically he called us wimps. He said, don't you guys understand that we can take this, and we're better than those guys, and we can run this, and we have all kinds of talent here. And when you get called a wimp, you kind of tend to say, okay, I'll go along with that. So we've decided not to merge the bank. Today, that is an organization of about $2 billion in assets, 450 people, and is noted as probably the premier community development organization in the United States. And I think of that day when Sherman says, we can do this. And that's the kind of influence that he's had on so many, many decisions and places. And then finally, I want to talk about him as a person. When his father was ill, 99 years old, Sherman would drive to his hometown every couple of days. He would call me and say, well, I'm on my way to Marvel. And he took care of his father in a way with dignity and with caring like I have never seen. And so I want to commend to you, Sherman Tate, and say you have made a great choice in your legacy award. We're going to see a little, and I want to introduce a little bit of a video of Sherman. And then after that, Sherman, we want to hear from you, and we hope you'll come talk with us. Thank you very much.
Being a good leader is not rocket science. Effective leadership is a means of influencing people. You want to be mindful of how you influence them. I was born and reared in the big city of Marvell, Arkansas. That was home. We were farmers. I'm an only child, but had a wonderful mom and dad. My dad taught me my work ethic. He said, don't take shortcuts. You want to try to make it the best job they've ever seen anybody do. And I never forgot that. That's the environment that I was in. I did graduate from high school and had an academic scholarship and had an athletic scholarship at Philander Smith. You got to be committed if you're serious about getting an education. After sophomore year, a couple of fraternity brothers of mine and myself, we decided we would take the first semester off and just go and party and have a good time, and we'd come back. Lost my basketball scholarship. Coach, he said, no, I'm taking this. You're not serious. A friend of mine had told me about the Sam Peck Hotel. I worked at the hotel, earned enough money to take care of the scholarship. When I graduated, I went straight to the City Hall of Little Rock. I had the good fortune to meet a guy named Tom Butler. Tom was Office of Personnel Management for the state of Arkansas. He offered me a job. It was a senior analyst job. So I gracefully transitioned from the city and that job, went over to the state. Sitting at my desk one day, the phone rings, and it was Mr. Marcus Halbrook, and he was an attorney. I'm nervous now. I'm going, uh-oh. Some legislators have complained about some recommendations they don't like. Mr. Halbrook invited me in his office, and we sit down. He said, you've made a good impression on these legislators, and they have suggested that I bring you on board. I'll never forget that, because from right here in Little Rock, we had made decisions about what the General Assembly ought to do. More often than not, that's what the House and the Senate was going to do. I was the first and only African American in any position, in any agency, in the Capitol at that time. When I worked for the Legislative Council, I was the director of Human Research, Personnel Administration. I did all of the wage and salary stuff, reviewed that from all of the agencies, and met with members of the different committees and gave them my recommendations. I had met this guy named Sheffield Nelson, and he was the president and CEO of Arkla Gas Company. He said, I want you to consider coming over, heading up my personnel department here in Arkansas, and take these guys and teach them and train them. I became vice president of distribution operation. I had 1,100 employees across the state of Arkansas. And I told my secretary to order me work uniforms. And she looked at me, she said, what you getting ready to do? I said, I'm getting ready to go to the field. I show up in Conway at 7 o'clock that morning. I said, listen, I'm not Mr. Tate. I'm Sherman Tate, your new employee. He put me with a 2-man construction crew. My credibility went up with my guys in the field. The best learning experience I had while I was with the gas company. There used to be a restaurant up there in the Heights that was famous for its breakfasts. And so one Saturday morning, I popped in there to get me some breakfast. And Joe Ford was sitting in there at a table by himself, and he saw me and he said, Sherman, join me. And he wanted me to consider coming over to Alltel and running the wireless operations in Arkansas. But I think my attitude and my people skills played an important part in my being able to move through the corporate community. So you can't assume that just because you got the title, that you got all of the answers. Because the men and women that are in the trenches, they have forgotten more about what really makes the organization run on a day-to-day basis than the guy sitting at the top who never spent a day out, in doing what they're doing. If they trust you and they feel comfortable with you, they can accept it. Never get in a position of telling people that you do what I say do because I'm telling you to do it. I always ask the men and women in the trenches what they think. I had no reservation looking at those 1,100 people and saying, I don't know. Does anybody in here know? My commitment was to get an answer, and I try to encourage young people to listen. Doesn't mean you always agree, but make sure you're listening. Ask the questions that you need and that you want to ask. That's how I met the people that really had an impact on my career. I'm just absolutely floored that the Arkansas Business Publishing Group had selected me. It's an honor and a privilege, and I wish my dad and my mom were here to see it, because it would be a beautiful punctuation to the things that they taught me, and I'm flattered and honored and very, very appreciative.
Ladies and gentlemen, our Legacy of Leadership Award winner, Mr. Sherman Tate.
Let me say good evening to everyone. And let me make sure there's no misunderstanding about how appreciative I am for this wonderful honor. I will also tell you that when I was contacted and told that this was going to happen, I was floored. It was absolutely a surprise, and I appreciate Arkansas Business for selecting me for this wonderful recognition. It's a testament. I stand before you because it's a testament to the people I called Mom and Dad. And I have to tell you, and I'll be brief, I've been told not to be long-winded. The main one that told me that I'm really listening to, I got to go home with her, so. It's a testament to my mom and dad, but it's also, I stand before you because it's a testament to the woman that I'm married to who has been and continues to be a strong supporter, and I appreciate that. But my mom was, as you heard, was the educational advocate. She taught me how to read. She taught me how to write. She taught me my multiplication tables before I started the first grade. And she was really serious about it. My dad was equally serious about my work ethic. And being farmers, those of you that don't know anything about farming, let me assure you that it's always something to do on the farm. There's no shortage of work. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank my longtime friend, Walter Smiley, for that wonderful introduction. But here is the thing that I've always remembered, and you heard some of it on the video. And I learned this from people that I had the privilege of getting to know here in Little Rock, like Walter Smiley and Mac McLarty and Sheffield Nelson. And I could go on and on. But these men were friends. Joe Ford, they supported me and guided me, and we all know that without that kind of support and guidance, it's very difficult to maneuver through the bureaucracy that we all have to deal with. You must and have to have friends somewhere. And I was very fortunate. They knew that I was never afraid or hesitant to get my hands dirty. And I would be also remiss if I didn't thank Southern Bank Corps, and I see Darren Williams sitting over here, who is the president and CEO. You heard Walter talk about my and his long-term relationship with Southern. And Darren, I'm privileged to still be associated with it, and I applaud your leadership. I see Matt Waller over there, and I'm mentioning Matt because, in case you don't know, the University of Arkansas School of Business is well known nationwide because of Matt Waller. Yes, give him a hand. Without getting long-winded, I also want to thank all of my fellow board members and colleagues and friends with Blue Cross Blue Shield. I've been a long-term member of that board, and I want you folks, you men and women, to know that it's a pleasure and an honor to be associated with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to lose. We're going to win. I would also challenge all of us to make sure that as we know, and I look at this audience and I know that there's a lot of knowledge and skills and experience here, it's incumbent on us to use our knowledge, skills, and abilities in those relationships to make the next generation and the next generation better and make them position themselves so that they can carry on and make things bigger and better than we had when we were coming along. And that's what I remember, and that's what I was taught. And if you all have not, if you're struggling with any of that, I would invite you. In fact, I'll come get you. And I'll take you to the booming metropolitan area of Marvell, Arkansas. And we'll stroll down Main Street, and I'll show you from whence I came and what we can do to make things better everywhere. Because we all know what we're dealing with now. Thank you, Arkansas business, for this wonderful honor. I do not take it for granted. I'm just flattered and appreciative, and thank all of you for being here.